What's going on, everyone? This is Limit Proof here, coming out with my first video that I've recorded in terms of racing. Fairly new to the racing scene when it comes to mountain biking and short track. I have been doing cyclocross for the past couple of years now here in Texas. This is going to be the fourth race, or I should say race number 4 of the DFW series for the summer at Erwin Park. The past 2 races that I've entered in for this summer have been in the intermediate category, but this time around I decided to go the beginner category to see where I'd place. In the intermediate category, for the past 2 times I've been right in the middle of the pack slash group, all ages included. I am new to both racing and taking training seriously. I'm not new to racing specifically in that I've done a number of gravel races, mainly the Mid-South. I've done 3 years now, but it's only been in the past, I would say 2 years that I've been taking training seriously and trying to figure out all the work that goes into that. Being the case, what I ended up doing winter before last, I ended up getting a trainer. Started off with a kicker snap, and now I'm on a kicker core. Seeing the benefits of having those direct drive trainers for those more high intensity, punchy type of workouts where you don't want your wheels slipping. So I definitely recommend that if you're getting a trainer. Direct drives do live up to their hype. So for this race here, I actually was quite surprised in my heart rate. I typically run a heart rate higher than average. I get up to around 200 beats per minute at the very end here, which might be frightening to some. For me, it's not completely crazy, but it was higher than normal when racing. I do get those race jitters still, and am anxious starting off. The bike that I'm riding is my fat bike in skinny fat mode is what I call it. It's going to be an RSD Mayer version 5. Usually I have fat tires on there, 4.3 by 26 Surly Edna tires, but right now I have 29 by 3, 29 plus tires, and I have Vittoria Bombolonis, I think is what the tire is. They don't make it anymore because the plus tire, unfortunately, at least for 29s, has kind of died out. It's a very niche product. I am running rigid as well. Do not have a suspension fork on this, just a bike packing fork, carbon fiber. Figured that it's better for racing, but I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about that. I do have a Santa Cruz Tallboy aluminum. It's not light by any stretch, but the advantage of suspension going down some of these a little bit chunkier sections cannot be understated. I find that I do have to slow down on a rigid bike going down that chunkier stuff. Granted, this is nothing super rocky or gnarly. There's no rock gardens or anything like that here, but when it comes to racing, of course, smooth is fast. So I'm kind of on the fence about using my full suspension next time for the next couple races here. For this race, I pretty much am able to keep within the top 5 throughout. The racer that you see in the rear view camera, I don't know any of these racers by name. Like I said, I'm new to the scene here, but that racer actually ends up winning this race. Spoiler alert. Right now, I think I'm in position 3 for the beginner category. And I just remember that I had somebody behind me throughout most of the race here, but I was just trying to keep going with what I had. I definitely did not have any gas left in the tank when I reached the end of this race. When it comes to racing, I will admit that I am also timid when it comes to passing. I have this weird, unsubstantiated fear of leapfrogging people. That is, I would I don't want to pass somebody only to have them catch up and then have to pass me and then have to pass them. So it's more of a pacing thing. I'm trying to work on that, such as this example here, where I just call out where I'm actually going to pass. Just keep going. Strangely enough, the distance, this being the shorter race between the beginner and intermediate categories, beginner category does 2 laps of this course, intermediate does 3. The pacing doesn't make that much of a difference for me. Of course, I'm not as fast in the intermediate category, but I don't slow down either between the 3 laps versus the 2. At least that's what I've noticed since I tried this category out. So Erwin Park, for those that are not familiar, it's up in McKinney. It's actually got quite a bit of variance in terrain for where it's located. Most of northern Texas is flat unless you get into some river bottoms. But this track here, I should say Erwin Park as a whole, it's around almost 10 miles in single track. And they've packed quite a bit of features into the smaller area, and I think you can get around maybe 700 to 800 feet of elevation difference just between the number of small climbs you have to do over and over again. This is up on the northern section of the trail. Gets a little rooty and windy back here. You got to kind of feed your bars through the tree gates. I'm not running the widest bars out there, but I'm certainly not running racer bars either. I think I have 760 millimeter wide bars on. I personally just wouldn't want to go any narrower for the time being, just because I have a little bit more of a wider wingspan. And so that's why I just figured I'd keep the bars on. I'm not that serious of a racer, at least not yet. So it certainly slows me down picking through the trees here. This northern section of this short track is interesting in that it has a lot of these little climbs that are deceiving. I would say they're gradual, but they are rooty, so we actually are going uphill in this portion right now. And they slowly, it's like death by 1,000 cuts, and so you really just have to pace yourself appropriately and not try to rocket up them, unless of course you have the power for it. I have been working on increasing my power output, especially when it comes to weight versus power ratio. Right around, I think, 3 watts per kilogram right now. Nothing to really brag about by any stretch, but it's improved greatly from where I started. And so I'm happy with that so far, but there's always, of course, room for improvement. And so you get to the top of this climb here, and actually quite gassed, but I just try to keep that hammer down and keep going. And then you'll drop back down into the trees here, where it's a little bit more wooded. So these small downhill sections, and then you'll just go right back up again. And so I need to really focus on, I've identified that's an area I need to focus on are those punchy efforts, VO2 max efforts, and anaerobic, I believe, anaerobic efforts. Just where you got to lay down that power to get up the hill as fast as you can without gassing yourself. Strangely enough, I am new as well when it comes to clipping in on a mountain bike. I've been mountain biking for 7 years now, and it's only recently that I've started to clip in and not use flat pedals. You definitely understand the advantages now of clipping in, especially in a race environment where you cannot or you don't want to have any effort go to waste or not be used. This is where we're going to go back down again after making that little climb. This is what I'm talking about, where I just get a little too timid in terms of passing. I should have passed a little bit further back and just been more assertive with that. But it just comes with practice, being confident in yourself as a racer and your skill. I think it's right up here is when I end up making a pass instead. Actually really appreciative. This is going to be as I mentioned at the beginning, the DFW series of races. Right now they have the spring series, summer series, and then the winter series. I believe there are talks for a fall series, but don't quote me on that. Sean McAfee is the person that is the one running the show. So I'm appreciative of him setting up these races. It really offers a way to improve yourself, mountain biking in general. I mean, yes, we are at a race here, but anytime you have a goal in mind, whether that be the fastest in the race or, just to get better, it's nice to be able to have something to strive for when it comes to mountain biking. Not that I don't have anything against, just riding out recreationally and going out during the week, but it feels good knowing that you can have something that's a goal to work on and then see those improvements come through. And that's only possible because these races are set up. If you don't have somebody setting up the races, well, you really don't have anything to participate in locally. And so it's great to have these. So these sections, Erwin has variety, as I mentioned. You have these areas where there's like open fields. This is one of those open field sections where you typically gain more speed. Right now it looks pretty busted up and almost like double track. That is because it has gotten quite a bit of usage over the years here, and so the original single track was actually rutted in quite a bit. And so they brought in some machinery to try to fill those ruts in. It was getting pretty bad considering I'm on a fat bike, so I have that wider Q factor that I was clipping my pedals on the sides of the ruts. And so it was forcing me to actually get out of the established channel on the single track. So it's nice to have a little bit more room to work with in this area now. It's rough, but it's going to get worked into place. So I mean, it's mountain biking. The conditions change. You're always going to be in a perfectly groomed surface like this, for example. And so, work with what you got. There's no crying in mountain biking. The direction of the course does change every other week, from my understanding. So the week before last, we were running the opposite direction of this. And so this open field section was actually a downhill for the most part. This is a slog in that it is, for the most part, just an extended climb. And then the finish line is at the very end of the climb. So you really got to be able to lay down your power and not gas yourself going up this. So this is where I felt like I was really struggling, along with everybody else on the course. That is something nice to take note of, I guess, in that most of the time when you're in a competitive situation like this, if you're suffering, more likely than not, your competition is also suffering. So it does sometimes help me to refocus my mind that if on a climb like this, I'm like, man, this climb is ridiculous, or I'm just gassed. But then you look around and the people you're going up against, they're also gassed and feeling tired. So it's not like you're the only one out there that is encountering these challenges. So we get up to the top here for the end of the first lap. So there is one lap after this one. At this point, we're going to start encountering some, I believe, intermediate category riders. They actually start a minute before the beginner category. And so you're just kind of catching them as you come around. I think personally the beginner category, you're able to go faster, of course, because you have shorter laps or less number of laps, therefore you can expend more energy and not have to pace yourself for the distance, of course. One thing that I've come to learn as well when it comes to racing, I am not great at hydration, especially hydration beforehand. I typically find myself drinking nothing but black coffee throughout the mornings, especially on work days, which is not great when it comes to health. And so I've also been trying to make a focused effort into hydrating a couple days beforehand, and then of course during the race, and then hydrating afterwards. I think this day here, I think we're in the upper 90s for the temperatures, so it's definitely not cool. So those Texas summers start to set in here. I've noticed that, of course, in these more open areas, I can gain more speed. Need to figure out a way to use that to my advantage. I am not a light rider. I wouldn't say I'm a big guy, but I'm definitely not small and lean, and I'm not following a diet like some racers do in order to drop as much weight as they can. In order to be in race shape, I just like my beer and pizza too much to completely go cold turkey and get super serious, but I would like to get fitter and faster. And so if you're lighter but putting down the same power, that gives you quite a bit of advantage, not only just in speed but also on climbs. Can't remember where I read it, but everybody in a bike race, everybody can go downhill fast. It's the climbs is where the races are won. In terms of racing, as I mentioned, so I'm new to this short track type of environment. Done more endurance type gravel races, extended distances when I've done events, and then cyclocross. I have not done anything road focused, really at all. Crit racing, while I like to watch it and I have friends that are into it, I don't know if I'd be into it. It seems quite daunting. It's a lot more of a mental game. Sean McAfee, the race director here, said in one of his videos that when you're mountain bike racing, it's more of a time trial, which I agree with that assessment. Of course, you're going up against, people you're racing with, but you're not going to encounter such, at least in this smaller short track races, team type tactics and whatnot, and blocking, and you don't have to worry about being as efficient and getting into, drafting and all that. And so I guess in terms of crit racing, then seems like there's a lot more to it in terms of what you're thinking and racing efficiently and racing smart, which I just don't have that skill set, at least not at this time, and I don't have a road bike. We're almost about halfway through this second lap here. I want to say my position at this point is 2. The racer that's behind me that ends up winning, I just passed him after he'd been in front of me for at least half a lap. And then the racer in front of the person right in front of me, might actually be 2 slots up, is in first place. You might not be able to see them. You can see this is a portion that hasn't really been filled in yet by the city or park maintenance. So it is getting a little rutted in, or it just does have deep ruts. This area up here, it's not been filled in yet on the left there, but instead people are just making a new track on the right because they'll be filling in that track on the left. And so Let's come to the last couple times I've raced this. As I mentioned prior, I end up clipping pedals if I take that channel, which slows you down. And so I focused on taking the upper portion this time, even though it might be rougher and uses more energy. So skipping ahead here, this is a deceiving climb. If you didn't notice on the first lap, it is a short climb that just gets you up to the road portion of the park where you cross over the road. But it has a higher gradient than the other climbs just because it's so short. Really gets gassed here, or I really get gassed here, and you just got to keep pushing once you get to the top, where it drops back down the open field, and then you have that finishing long drawn out climb to the finish line. Could probably gain a little bit more of an advantage if I was able to corner faster in these areas. Just need to be more confident in bike handling skills. It is a little loose out here, but being that I'm running a little bit bigger tires, I think I could corner a little more aggressively compared to other riders out there, maybe on something a little bit narrower. But that's me just spitballing. And of course, could lay down a little bit extra power on the open sections as well. Where it's either going flat or downhill. Just use that to my advantage, being that I am a little bit bigger rider compared to the faster, smaller types. And so I believe I'm still in second place here towards the end. We're getting towards the end here. We just got that gradual climb going back up. Rider behind me is going to be the one that ends up winning the race. Did not necessarily see it coming. It kind of catches me by surprise at the end here. But you'll see what happens. It all plays out. So at this portion right here where the stone is kind of the bottom where the climb starts. And as you can see, there's quite a number of racers suffering through this climb, which is what I was talking about earlier. Just seeing how everybody, if you're feeling the pain, everybody else is also feeling the pain as well. The rider 3 up, he's got orange sleeves on his shirt and it's like gray. He is in first place at this moment. And I remember knowing this. I was just so gassed at this point that I really couldn't lay down any more power or speed to catch up to him without completely going overboard, because I'm getting up to almost 200 beats per minute here. Just gasping for air. Just lack of fitness. I need to get faster, which will come with time and practice. So we have the top 3 right here. Me being second, first is in front, the orange and gray shirt on, and then third place at this moment is the rider right behind me. And so we're kind of up here to the final portion of the climb that leads you up to the finish line. This is where everything happens at the very end here. So I try to keep up here. I am maxing out there. We hit 200 right there. Rider behind me is just lighter and quicker, stronger, and is able to pass me right there. And he's just doing that standing and climbing, just mashing it out as we get to the very top. So we got 1, 2, 3. Now I'm in third. And at the very end here, he sneaks in and gets first place. And so that's how it played out. And I'm getting third place here. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this perspective from a strictly beginner racer. And thanks for watching. Limit Proof out.